Someone on TikTok suggested that I was a conspiracy theorist for saying that the media colludes with the people in power to sort of put forward a pro status quo ideology. And I don't ever get to use my journalism degree, so we're talking about manufacturing consent. Manufacturing Consent was written by Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky. The thing that they were looking at was whether or not you could call U.S. media propaganda, considering that we live in a country that has freedom of press and freedom of speech. So you would hope that you'd have a media that is combative towards the government and that is actively trying to counter lies or anything wrong or expose anything wrong that the government's doing. And they asked, how would this type of government go about controlling the press, and how could the structures of the way that the press is organized collude in supporting that sort of power structure? This is not a conspiracy theory. Herman and Chomsky believe that this is stuff that happens almost organically, rather than, there being a shadowy cabal that's telling the press what to write. That's not what they're saying is happening right here. Basically, they found 5 features of the United States press that makes it more likely to toe the line when it comes to what the government says than to kind of go out there and take risks in their reporting. First, most media in the United States is owned by corporations. Corporations have a fiduciary duty to serve the bottom line of their investors, and that means that they have to try and get as much stuff out there, as much circulation, as much eyes on their programming as possible. And that means sometimes having to do stuff which kind of appeals to lowest common denominator or appeals to certain biases that people might have. So, if you do, if you know that you're going to sell a lot of stories about, the murdered beauty queen, even if that isn't quite as important a story as environmental collapse. Number 2, they are beholden to their advertisers. They can't say stuff that's going to piss off their advertisers, because if advertisers no longer work with them, they lose money. Number 3, sourcing. If you're going to report on the government, the way that you do that is by having sources within the government. If the government doesn't like you, if they find you to be too combative, they can close off access. And that means that you, to some extent, have to toe the line with your government sources. Number 4 is flack. If you write something or say something that's unpopular in the mainstream media, you will get absolutely reamed. And if you've ever had every conservative person saying you're terrible, it brings out the crazies. People don't want to do that all the time. So a lot of the times they'll avoid super controversial stuff because it could be dangerous. 5th is anti-communism or anti-terrorism. Basically having something that the government is working towards and arguing that any press that goes against the government is serving the communists or the terrorists is a way of controlling the press. So those are the 5 ways that the media kind of works with the government.